Well, I'm so excited. This is going to be fun. Andrea Fohrman, thank you so much for doing this and for taking the time to chat with me. I know it's always weird to like break out in the middle of the day or mid-morning and talk about yourself, but I think this will be fun. So thank you so much for being here. You are very talented. And I've gotten to know you a little bit through our very mutual friend, my super bestie, Carrie. But I've gotten to know you in very informal settings. So I think the first time I really I've heard about you for years and years, but the first time I really got to know you was Carrie's, when we were celebrating her birthday at the height of COVID in Palm Springs, in like the pool and hanging out. And that was really weird because we like tested, I think, before we came down there and everyone was a little bit odd, but it was really fun. But it was nice. And I've heard about you and I've been to one of your trunk shows. And obviously I know your jewelry, but you give off a vibe that's like really inviting and really calming and also energetic at the same time. And it's a sweet spot. I really think it's like a sweet spot. And it's also comes through in your jewelry. And I think your jewelry it's like been copied but never fully replicated. Does that make sense? You're like the OG of what you do. And it shows. It's like, really impactful and I don't know, carries an energy, and that's why I wanted to interview you. So I've actually interviewed a few jewelry designers over the years, and obviously this is steeped deeply in women's health and wellness and preventive care, and I mostly talk to, scientists and researchers, but I believe really deeply in the power of energy and healing, and I believe that what we put on our bodies and into our bodies is quite meaningful. So as you know, I started this foundation because my mom died of ovarian cancer, and my mom really carried a very intense energy. She just had a glow about her that to this day, 27 years after she died, people talk about. My mom loved perfume and she loved perfume bottles. And she also loved jewelry. She was a tiny person. She was like barely, she was 5'4", but she was like a 5-foot person and tiny, teeny tiny. And she liked big jewelry. Big jewelry. And it was really meaningful to her. And you could like see her coming from a mile away. And I always sat in her bathroom and I haven't thought about this in a while, but I took notice of her tchotchkes and her stuff. And she really took time picking things that went on her body. And as a young girl, I just thought it was kind of dress up. But I think she really was very intentional about what she put on her body and how it made her feel. Towards the end of her life, and even when she was really sick, she really was even more intentional about it. And I think it was really important to her how she felt and how she sort of made herself feel by what she put on her body, because I think it had such meaning to her. And so as I've grown older, I take a lot of meaning in that too, and how things make me feel. And I find jewelry to be very powerful. It has a lot of meaning and history to it, and stones in particular. So that's what I really want to talk to you about, because I think your own personal energy comes through in the jewelry that you design and how you pick your stones. And then sort of it seems really circular. So I think the stones pick themselves for you and you pick them. Am I reading too deeply in this? Tell me how you started. How did this happen? Did you bead as a child? Go diary of the mouth. Make it happen.
That's very easy for me. Thank you for having me on. I love what you're doing. I'm a big podcast. I listen to pretty much all day, even when I'm working, and I've got some AirPods in my ears listening to a lot of health, wellness things, because I figure, it's, if I'm not doing it all, at least I'm listening to the things and thinking about them, and trying to get there. And it's hard. I also am kind of laughing because describing me as calming yet energetic, it's very funny because no one's ever called me calm. But I think I know what you mean personality wise. I like to make people feel comfortable, and I love to get to know someone. And I remember the COVID little testing and birthday celebration we had for Carrie, and it was all so weird. It's like, all we wanted to do was like sing and dance together and be next to each other and like, drink and eat and have fun, and such a weird time. So yeah, that's when we basically spent time together. But I'm glad we're out of that. So thank you for having me on. Yeah, that was not so fun. But it did bring a lot of it's interesting, and I'll talk about it a little bit. And I know that we all have been traumatized by COVID, but a lot of us came out of it with some. There's a lot of positive things that happened for me during, and it was very hard for me at the same time. So anyway, going back, I was a very energetic child and always liked to create and just play, loved to play, played sports, moved my body, and I was into the arts. So I was dancing, I did some theater, I took art history, I took photography, I liked pottery. So there were like those parts of me that I think helped get my energy out, which was always pretty high. And never really thought about jewelry. I went to the University of Arizona for college, and I moved to Florence, Italy for my junior year, went abroad, and I was a Bachelor of Fine Arts. So that was amazing because I'm literally at where it all began. And I took a metalsmithing class. I took art history, photography, and you're literally walking on the streets of like where it all began. So completely inspired. And the Ponte Vecchio Bridge is a bridge in Florence where there's all these artisans, jewelry artisans, and every day they're just hand making pieces. And then they put it out on their windows, and so when you walk by, new pieces would appear. And that kind of caught my eye in the jewelry world. When I look back to photos of myself when I was young, I was like dripping with jewels. So I understand what you're saying. I'm kind of tiny also, and totally get what you're saying about your mom. Like the process of kind of accessorizing was part of me, and I liked style. And so I'm very into that. I always have been. So just that kind of began a thing. It wasn't just that I was just into jewelry. It was just kind of having my own look, different than what everyone else was doing. So that's through jewelry, just right away, I always felt you're unique with what you wear. We could all have the same Esprit sweatshirts that we had on and all the Guess jeans that we had on. But the jewelry was kind of where you could really make it your own, make your own look. And then graduating college, I worked for Universal Studios for a big head of the studio as an assistant. And I was very bored by it. I mean, I was very busy. It was a very tough job. But the creative part of me wasn't coming out. So it was very corporate. I probably should have worked on a movie set or like with a costume designer or something like that initially. Because for me, it kind of ruined the movies for me because it was literally, cutting up the picture and the scenes and all that. It wasn't, I didn't feel like it was like a creative part of the job for me. So on the weekends, I started beading necklaces. And it was kind of at the time when there were like seed bead bracelets that were elastic were coming out. And I started beading necklaces and bracelets and put my own little twist on things that was going on. And through that business, through working at Universal, I started meeting celebrities, and I put one on Jennifer Aniston, and I put one on Mariah Carey, and just random people that would come in and meet with my boss who wanted to make movies. And then once celebrities were wearing them, I then went into stores around LA. And one big one for me was Tracy Ross on Sunset. And I was like, so-and-so are, I know these are your clients and they're wearing my necklaces. So she would place little orders. And then, Fred Siegel was the big one. LA, at the time had a lot of that trend. And so it was great for me. I had to use the celebrity thing to get in the door. You got to do what you have to do. And once that started, the design kind of took on its own life. So I was very into vintage jewelry as well, just to go back a little further. My grandmother, a lot of the jewelry designers will tell you that their grandmother, that they had a grandmother that inspired them. Back in that day, they would dress and they would wear makeup and look, everything was put together. And then it was, they had these jewelry. And my grandma, Florence, her name was, she was very, very into cocktail rings. So I was very inspired from that and also just vintage jewelry. So initially I started going to flea markets all over. Los Angeles has incredible ones. I would hit some LA ones, some Chicago ones. Actually in the Midwest was actually where there were great ones because people weren't getting, there was more product. So I started reworking vintage pendants and making them into even like pins or lockets or whatever. And I would bead jewelry and have the vintage be the actual pendant, the vintage piece. So it was like recreated vintage jewelry with the original piece. So that was really cool. And that was kind of an introduction for me on different eras of jewelry and like crazy things. Like I would open up a locket and someone's hair would be in it. And which was really kind of disturbing, but also sweet, and so jewelry is just this very,
it's a story. I love it. It's
exactly
such a story.
I would watch people put on their jewelry. I would make something and I would just be so inspired. And then to watch someone fall in love with a piece that I would actually hand make was really, really, that was like really inspiring for me and just gratifying. And so I was like, here, it's cool because I have this creative outlet. I'm also, sales comes very easy to me. So I could sell the jewelry easily, but also I was into what was going on in fashion during the time. So it was like a modern twist of a vintage. And you hear that a lot with jewelers, but that's really, we're all inspired by these previous eras. So that's initially how it began. And then I started to get into fine jewelry, which is a whole other beast. I started, recreating some of my grandma's old cocktail rings. And then as a child, I was always obsessed with the weather. And I grew up in Marin County, just outside of San Francisco, and we lived up on a mountain. And thinking back, it's so incredible to be raised up there on the mountain. But during the night, the sky would be like clear stars and weather would be passing through the hill that I lived on because the other side was the Pacific Ocean. So it was like, the fog would roll in and it would roll out and it'd be like bright sunny day, lots of rain, rainbows. And then at night, just these like the sky. And we would go as kids, we would go up on this place called the Plateau right next to my house and sit up there and watch stars all night. And I just always was obsessed with the beauty of just weather and like the sky. So I decided to start making some jewelry so that I could connect with that. And my first pendant that I made was a crescent moon. And it was based off of a Victorian moon that was made, decades earlier. So again, using that vintage inspiration, I got into the celestial part of the jewelry. And I think that's pretty much what I'm known for. When I started the business, there weren't a ton of I call it fashion fine jewelry, which means we're not going into Tiffany or a jewelry store and wearing white gold and white diamonds, which is still a classic and will always be incredible. That experience is always going to be special. This is more like, what do you wear with jeans? What do you wear with, in LA, our uniform is denim and a t-shirt and and
we don't dress like our moms and we certainly don't dress like our grandmas anymore.
That's right. And so for me, it was a way to dress up the outfit and put, again, like in childhood, just put my own style to something or put my own feel to my outfit. I had to be connected with what I was doing.
Hmm.
So like, it wasn't just about making jewelry and selling it. Like I had to feel like what I was making was part of who I was. So I do appreciate what you were saying before about how, it comes out in my jewelry, kind of my personality comes out, I think is what you said in the jewelry. And I've heard that before. And that's the best thing you could say to me because, I tried to do some corporate stuff and I needed to do stuff that I could feel connected to. So once I started designing around the sky, I was just so inspired and I went off there. And so that's kind of how it all began. In addition to connecting celestial stuff with my jewelry, I'm also very into gemstones. So it's like I call myself, I'm like a gemstone junkie. I have like drawers and drawers of one of a kind, incredible gemstones.
Where do you find them? How do you source them? Where do you get them?
Yeah.
How do you
so
stop buying them?
It's exactly, it's a problem. It's a problem. Like every year, basically every year I go to the Tucson Gem Show. It's like it's once a year. It's usually like the end of January, beginning of February in Tucson, Arizona, which is all very full circle for me because that is where I went to college. My parents went to college. My aunt and uncles went to college there. My husband and I met there. And my daughter's
Did you meet in college?
we didn't date till after he was graduated, but yes, we met in college. My daughter's currently a sophomore at University of Arizona.
Oh, I love that.
It's kind of crazy. So Tucson is a really special place. I don't know if you've ever been, but
No, I haven't been since I was a kid, but yes.
it's just like a small town with tons of culture. There's so much going on there. And so the Gem Show is one of the things that bring people to Tucson every year. It's like 2 weeks long. I couldn't stay that. I would run out of money. I usually run out of money very quickly. But the people from all over the world go and they sell their jewelry. They sell their raw materials. And then, and then as a designer, you go. But there's also like, you can buy a sink there made out of malachite. You can, there's tons going on there. So that's where it all began for me. I went during college, so I've been going forever. I went like just to look around. My aunt always took me. And then I started this jewelry world. So I started going back to Tucson every year. And that's where the gemstone collections and like the addiction began. And the coolest part about the whole thing is going there for decades now. I still go and find a new stone that I've never heard of, or there's like just when I thought I didn't know, that I knew every single stone that was out there, or I've seen them all, something will appear.
How does it speak to you? Is it all the senses? Like, is it your eye? Is it your touch? Like, what is it how does it speak to you?
I have to hold the piece. That's the first thing that I do because I do believe in that energy. It's hard to explain, it's hard to put into words what that is to me. But it is, there is energy in these stones. And I truly believe that there's certain stones that promote healing and promote, clarity and promote, things. But for me, my experience has been different. If you look up amethyst, it'll give you like a list of 10 things that it will promote, energetically. So every stone has a bunch of stuff in it. And I think like whatever speaks to you with the stone is that's what's connecting you. It's very hard to explain. I keep a couple next to my bed. And it's not because I looked up that it, helps me sleep better. There's just certain energies that come from it. And there's certain energies from some I don't like. That I like, I put away and I'm like, this just didn't feel great, even though I thought it was a pretty stone. So it's a very interesting process and I overthink it. Not that I overthink it, but there's a lot to it. So I pick up the piece and I love one of a kind pieces. I mean, every gemstone, I guess, is pretty much one of a kind. But, if you have a clear turquoise cabochon, like the one, like your necklace that you're wearing, for example. Those stones, if you look at it, they are different. Are those opal or are those turquoise? I can't tell.
Turquoise.
Yeah. So they look like they're the same stone, but that's an example of a stone you can kind of recreate to look not as fine. But then there are some stones, like one of my favorites is called chrysocolla. And it's like blues and got white little crystallized whites in it. And then it's got some black in it or like darkness in it. And it's just like every time I use it or wear it or whatever, it just is, I can't even believe it. So it's like, it still happens for me where I say to myself, I can't believe this is a natural stone from the earth. Like there's just so many pretty things to this world. And I think sky kind of is where it began for me. And then grounding myself and on the earth and opening up these rocks. And it helps me, I guess. I guess it helps me, high energy me. It does. It grounds me and I feel connected to it. So the best part is seeing someone else find that in the piece that you designed,
Do you ever go on trips looking for these and finding them yourself?
My goal is to go to India. My kids, I have, they're getting, I'm almost at the stage where I'm an empty nester. But I felt like India was pretty far for me. But I am, and I do want to go and do that trip. And my gem dealers that are from India, and a lot of them are from India. They've invited me, and apparently it's this incredible experience. And they host you, and it's like this, how you see the culture, they wear all the jewelry. And so it's a very special place. So a lot of my stones are from India, all put together, 2 gemstones. So it'll be like amethyst and rutilated quartz. Rutilated quartz have these like gold streaks in them. So I put the amethyst on the bottom and then he'll put the rutilated on top and it looks like a shooting star going across amethyst. So like that type of stuff is how I've kept the creative thing going with in terms of continuing to like just be in awe of these gemstones. But like chrysocolla, Brazil, turquoise, there's turquoise in Arizona and Colorado. Kingman, there's different mines of turquoise all over the United States, or definitely in the mountain regions in the Southwest.
Yeah.
As you guys, I'm sure everyone's heard of, emeralds are the best from Colombia. I use very little precious stones. So like when it comes to diamonds, I can make you a 5-carat diamond ring, but I take the gemstone that I find, this one-of-a-kind gemstone, and then I put like 1 millimeter to 2 millimeter stones around the chrysocolla, let's say. And so that's like a small, we're not talking about like, big diamonds, big emeralds fire. That's not what I do. My favorite thing about the color combination thing is to take some stone that I fell in love with and put a stone surrounding it that you wouldn't really expect. Because it brings out different colors you don't really see in the chrysocolla that like it'll come out if you use a different stone. So that's the creative part of me that I just absolutely love. I've been around. And so what I was going to say about that is when I started the business, there were only a few fashion fine jewelry designers. One of my women I really looked up to was like Kathy Waterman. And she was in Barney's, there are a couple of them, but she was one that stood out for me because again, it was like, oh, I can wear fine jewelry casually, like cool. So I was kind of right after her, I would say, like after that group that I started. And it's taken on, the whole jewelry design world has taken on a life of its own. There was no Instagram, there was no internet, there was internet, but you didn't have a website and you never sold your jewelry direct to a customer because you would be competing against your retailer. So there were all these rules before, and the business has changed so much. So it's a tough business. It's like everyone's a jewelry designer. Maybe you've heard that saying before, and know that to be true, especially in LA. But it's true. It's like very, it's competitive. It's like, it's the fashion world. One of my proudest like moments was I used to go to New York for press week and fashion week. And so you would meet all the editors. It still goes on, but it's just so different now, especially after COVID. So you would meet all the editors and show them your line. And then they, would hopefully write a little blurb about you or, put it into some sort of editorial or something. And then you meet with the buyers at the stores you were in to buy your jewelry. And one of my proudest moments was Vogue magazine called me the celestial queen of jewelry. And I was like, this is like, to me, that was like, Vogue writing about you. And then
the pinnacle.
It was awesome. So yeah. So I guess why I'm bringing that up is because you said there have been people that, this is what happens in fashion, one day you're in, the next day you're out. Someone comes in with a new moon, I didn't invent the moon. I can't copyright the moon. So, it's a competitive, cutthroat business. And along the way, when you're raising two kids, and as a woman, I think it's really hard to figure out how to do both of those things. It still is hard. Like it's 2025. And I talk about this with women that most of my girlfriends have pretty big careers. And being a mom is the biggest career there could be. And I think as a woman, you always struggle with how do you balance that? Like, because I have to give 100% to being a mother, but I also have a part of me that really like wants to have a successful business. So that's been really interesting to navigate the past 20 years. My daughter's 20. And I thought, perfect, like I'll be a jewelry designer and I can work from home and I can watch my kids, design some jewelry, go on a few trips, a year, which will be great, getting out of the house, and then be a mom, and you can't have both like that. There has to be sacrifices that are made.
You can't be 100% of the time to 100 to everything. You just can't. It's always a tear. Like it's always a tear. It's always a juggle. I think about it a lot, obviously, and my kids are older. My youngest is in high school, and my oldest son's graduating from college in a month. It's bananas, but it's also this incredible struggle because we want to tell women, like young women, have a career, really bang it out in your 20s and work really hard. And you can wait until you're older and then, have kids. And then I think like, it's really hard to have kids when you're older. Like, first of all, physically, it's really hard. It's not that easy. And it's hard on your body and it's hard on your health. And it's not, and if you want to have a partner to do it, it's harder and harder. And then there's a sense of, well, if you have kids when you're younger and if you want to have kids and you can wait, to your career started, there's like this amazing moments in your late 30s and 40s where like, yourself a lot better and you like have this like insane, I don't know if it's your second, your third, or your fourth wind where you have the ability to do different things that you probably couldn't do in your 20s. And there's a different world now, right? Where you don't have to go into an office and have a job to have a phenomenal career. Like it's a different world than when you and I started working out of college. So it's just a different landscape. So I don't know what the answer is. And I think it's just completely different for everybody. But you can't be the best at everything for everybody. It just can't. You just can't be present for everyone all the time. So there's no good answer. There just isn't. You just do the best you can and be a good example for your children and a good example for yourself and be the best human you can be. But there is this interesting thing you were saying earlier about that I think about a lot, which is longevity. Longevity I don't mean longevity living to 120. I mean longevity in your career. So I think in order, especially like around our age, because the world has changed so much in when we started and what we're doing. And there's this wonderful compliment that one of the doctors that I work with has given me multiple times. I don't know if she forgets, she tells me, but she's given it to me a lot, which is that I'm still doing this after, similarly to you, 2.5 decades longer. You just continue to adapt, right? And so I think when you start, some things that you've said along the way in this conversation of, if you really do something because you love it, hands down, you'll be able to continue to do it. And if it's truly coming from inspiration from deep within you, that's different than just doing it because you're banging it out, right? So you were inspired by your, these beautiful childhood memories of sitting on a plateau. I mean, it's like something out of a Disney movie. It's kind of incredible. And looking up at the stars, what an idyllic, a beautiful moments that you had. But I do think, like I called you at the beginning, you're like the OG of the jewelry that you've been making. So people can copy you, but they can't fully replicate it because, one, I don't think they have that same deep inspiration. So it's not the same. Like it doesn't have that same coming from their gut. And I don't believe they're like digging in the treasure troves of at the gem shows in the same way you are, with the deep desire to like go to the source and find out like how to crack that rock open and find, and see the gems from the earth. So I think that's kind of amazing and beautiful and why you've had this long running success. Can you look 5, 10 years ahead? Do you ever do that, or do you just live in the moment and keep moving?
Well, a few things. I also think our generation was like the last generation. Like we had moms that stayed at home, a few worked maybe. It was like kind of that struggle between staying at home and being a full-time mom and having a job. Like it's changed and there's a lot of opportunity now, I think, for women to be able to do both.
Yeah.
I just think that this struggle, there's always going to be that struggle in your head.
Because we have babies. Like there's this, it's just a biological fact. Like no matter what happens with the word gender, like you can't you can only push a baby out of a woman's belly. Like it's just, and breasts produce milk. Like it just is what it is. So once you get that baby out of you, and we carry babies, like it's just the way it goes. So it just is.
Yeah.
We get our period. It happens. Like it is,
So I guess I thought through being able to have my own business in jewelry, oh yeah, I can go to that meeting or I can, and that almost spread me too thin.
Yeah.
That was like a problem for me and my personality because I tend to be a little all over the place if I don't have that focus. So that's been tough for me with the success of my business, managing that and also managing my house, which was so
totally.
So with this world, I feel very lucky, but maybe like someone like maybe they can't create the designs and the feel that comes from my jewelry, but there are a lot of good people that are good in business, and they're like, you know what, I'm just gonna make like 1,000 moons and like push them out into the world, and I don't need. My biggest problem was my retailers would be like, you need to like. You have too many things going on. Like you have too many designs. Like you need to focus on having collections. And, I would go to like Paris Fashion Week, which is amazing. It's such an incredible experience. And to get there and like the scheduling with the kids and be that far away and the jet lag and the anxiety and all that stuff. And then I would go and I'm like so excited about the collection, and then they would come, they'd see it, and then they'd be like, okay, what's next? Like, so the
You're
fashion,
like, I'm exhausted from being here.
So I got to go home and like make sure my kid's gonna be like,
you're like, no one ate for 3 days. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
My husband, he's really good with the kids and all that, and that's been very lucky for me. I think you have to have a partner, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like,
totally.
Want to try to have it all. Someone that can support. You need that support. You need it mentally. You need to know that when you go away, like things are okay, and that and he always was supportive of like, I had to go. Vegas does a show every June, and I would go for 7 days, set my booth up, and it like you're away, and the kids, are young. So that's important for me. When you ask me when I look forward to the next 5 years, another thing I've learned is that I can't control everything, which I really like to do. And it's just not possible.
Tell me about it.
Having two teenagers will definitely teach you that. On top of when in COVID, my kids were 13 and 16, and that age is it was actually a blessing that we were at home.
Yeah.
Even though, some mornings I wanted to rip my, I was I wake up and be like, wait, this is real. This wasn't a dream. Please.
Seriously.
So 13 and 16, we had them at home. So that was kind of cool because we all stopped and we got to focus in on them and things going on with 13 and 16-year-olds. And we were all in the home together. We didn't get to escape to our places all day and then come back together for dinner or running around activities. Every weekend we'd spend at sports and theater and, wanting to try to go out with friends or whatever. So it made me stop and really think about what I want for the next however long. And I did. What happened is I slowed down the trying to keep up with this jewelry world and the fashion world. I felt more creative by doing that. I felt I wasn't, I was saying, I wasn't pressured to make these collections and if I didn't want to go to Paris Fashion Week, and I know that sounds like poor me, but I'm saying it's a tough trip to take when you have the kids and whatever. And you're always there's always in fashion, there's always a season that's changing and colors that are changing. And so keeping up with that world takes a certain kind of person also.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided during COVID, I'm just going to make my business comfortable for me. And I'm going to cut down with I did a lot of travel. I'm going to cut down with travel and I'm going to kind of bring it back, bring myself back. And once I did that, because when you have a very long career doing one thing, you do lose creativity or things go flat. You can look at anybody and be like, God, I wish I did that. But there's times in the career where you're I'm a little bit over it, I mean, this is jewelry, but it's a business. And running your own business is a tough thing. So you get burnt out. So since then, I've been concentrating on selling a lot direct to customer, which is great because I put up my stuff on my website. I can promote it on social media, and then it's, it's not wholesale, it's retail. So it's, that's better profitability wise. And then I like this pace. So when I think about jewelry in the next 5 years and what I'm doing, I'm going to keep creating, but I'm going to kind of do it on my own terms. And I'm going to try to there was a big chunk of time when it was just all stress.
Mm-hmm.
Getting back to I just went to Tucson last month. That is so inspiring for me. When I get there, something dopamine, something hits and I am on a high and I just love it. And it's so inspiring. And then I come home and I slowly create things from the pieces I bought. I don't have to get it out by June. And so that's for my business. That's where I'm at. I want to continue making beautiful things. I need to work on my health and my wellness. And I think why I love listening to your podcast is that as a woman, it's was the last thing on the list of things that I did in the decade of my 40s. I just turned 51. But in my 40s, it was running around. So now that I have a little more time on my hands, with the kids being, older, my youngest is a junior in high school and he drives and he's very social and not around a lot. So I don't have any more excuses. So there's so many tools that we have now and things that we can be doing. And so that's my goal, is that I really need to take, this decade, and this is for me is going to be about being accountable, being healthy. I think what happens sometimes with this whole biohacking thing and all these things coming at us, because it's so easy to listen to a podcast or read an article about what we should be doing. almost too much. Like,
Mhm.
like I love walking when I wake up in the morning. I love the idea of walking outside and getting your face in the sun, putting your feet on the ground for a few minutes. Some say meditate for 20 minutes, stay out there for 20 minutes. Don't look at your phone the minute you wake up. Don't go to bed with your phone next to you. Yeah, of course. Like those things are real. Like I know, but I think that I'm at the place where like I can't do all those things.
Yeah.
Like I'm not gonna I can't cold plunge and do the meditation. Like I can't because I can't wake up at 5 a.m. If I take a little piece of what I've heard on a podcast and a little thing and it's working for me in that moment and I'm doing, then to me that's a step forward.
You got to put your mask on first. And I think this decade and this time of your life is really beautiful and important because you can take all the things that you've learned and all the things that you've done and allow it to be a time where I don't think being selfish is the right word. And a lot of women say that like it's me time, but I think it's actually more about like being really productive in the best ways. Like it's taking things that serve you well. And it's so cheesy, but it's like doing things that fill your cup. It's like shedding the shit and shedding people who don't serve you and don't make you bring you joy and happiness. And there's things we all have to do and, tasks we have to do and people you might have to see. But, I just had a beautiful, wonderful conversation with a friend the other day. And it was like, even if it's family who really bring you down and really don't make you, yeah, it's okay to like not give them the space in your brain and your heart and even your time. Because time is precious. And if you do have your immediate family who you really spend your energy on, your children, your husband, your partner, whatever it is, like that's where it should go. And so you don't have, there's only so many hours in the day, right? So if it's things like, see the sun in the morning and put your feet on the ground, and it's okay to sit down on the couch for 5-10 minutes and, in the afternoon and just like relax or watch a bad TV show, whatever it is, or if it's the iced tea that you like, whatever it is you need. I think this is a wonderful decade to do that and to say, my business is important to me, but it's important for me to do it in a way that really serves me. And my guess is that success will continue, but it'll continue in even a twist, like a twist that also brings you personal success in a different way that fills you up even more.
Totally.
Right?
Yes.
And I think it's a great time. Like I really do. Yeah. I just think it's a great time. Like all the other stuff just fades and it should fade because it's just too exhausting. Like who has the energy at this stage? I mean, I don't. So
no. I mean, I remember when Grace, my daughter, when she left for college, first child to leave the house, and my son got his license, and my husband's super busy with work, and I remember being in the house alone, and it was like I was like, I still might get choked up from it. It's quiet.
Oh yeah,
and like you're kind of like. It's like it took me a while to get out of that like lonely feeling. So the me time saying like it happens a lot right now for women my age. And it's like a beautiful thing and it's a beautiful part of life, but it's pretty major when or for me, I'm speaking
it's intense.
My women
it's
friends.
Intense.
And so I guess just to get to the place where like you can walk in your house and it's a little quiet and you're like, oh, okay, now I'm gonna, I like to do my gratitude journal. I like to try to do it, but some days I don't do it, but like there's that extra time. And then, there's days I walk in, I'm like, I'm just gonna watch some Bravo right now.
Yeah.
And I don't really care.
Yeah.
So I just think that pressure, getting that pressure off of ourselves, a little bit, or give ourselves a little bit of space to like try to do the wellness thing, but also be okay with a couple days, being a little flat.
But that's being well too, because it's listening to yourself and what you need. Well, thank you so much. This was awesome. This is exactly the conversation I thought we were going to have, which was wonderful and open and honest. And you're great. And thank you. And your success is wonderful. It's been really fun to watch.
Thank you. Thank you
so much. Thank you. I hope we have more conversations in the future.